Hello, and welcome to, uh, whatever this is. You can see in the title, which we don't have right now. I am Sombraptor, and I am joined by Delta
Hello.
and Boofire.
Howdy ho. So
Go on.
before we kick this off, I do have a minor idea for the name of this cast because there's one other person who I believe is interested in doing this. So I took an amalgamation of our names and I came up with the SMAB cast, SMAB. Really dumb.
Smart.
SMAB. It sounds like
Good
a
word.
disease. But yes. So, hello everyone. I'm Boofire 191.
And I'm Delta 289.
And I'm Sombraptor, aka Mandacorian.
And today we are talking about, or at least the first topic that we want to kind of talk about is the new Sith Wars, a period in time in Star Wars that is batshit crazy, if you will.
Yeah, I just feel it's criminally underused. Like, there's just there's so much potential for stories like in this 1,000 years of absolute chaos, but like we've only explored like the last century, basically.
Right. But yeah, so who wants to... So I guess we should kind of kick off with a little bit of history. So, the new Sith Wars, when did this kind of kick off? Well, the thing is, with the new Sith Wars, there's a lot of... It's tied into another period in time within galactic history, and it's tied in with a period known as the Dark Age. Basically, this entire 1,000 years. The new Sith Wars start around 2000 BBY, after the Fourth Great Schism, it says, and it ends around, or basically exactly, at 1000 BBY. And nobody really knows how any of this started. If you play Star Wars The Old Republic, you have what's going on. You have, the Sith Empire, the Empire is cool, the Republic. You have all this crazy shit. And then some time passes, some even more time passes, and then you reach the Dark Age. And not a lot has happened. And like Raptor said, this is criminally underutilized. It's a period in time that probably won't be touched on anymore, but when you take a look at it, it is one of the more fascinating parts of Star Wars, because it is just 1,000 years of death, destruction, and misery.
Yeah, like I like to as I've said before, I like to think, well, sorry, not here, but in another conversation. As I've said, I feel that the new Sith Wars are comparable to the 40K of the Star Wars mythos, because there's just so much chaos going on, and like in a comparison to the Imperium of Man, there's such a wild variation in say technological levels, because some worlds were reduced to using spears, for God's sake, like working right next to people in full Durasteel armor and blasters.
Yeah, I remember reading in the New Essential Chronology. They had illustrations, and a lot of them, like you go from using blasters in the KOTOR era, and then to a bunch of guys fighting with axes and swords and spears. I always thought it was weird, but I guess it's just to show that technological regression with that era.
It's like,
And here's the thing, looking up and looking more into this, behind the scenes at Star Wars, what they wanted to do is they just wanted to create a more fantasy vibe. That's what they went for.
Yeah, and the original, I think it was just Jedi versus Sith, like it was from 2000. It was like a comic that was later adapted into part of the Darth Bane novel. Yeah, because like there was some weird stuff. Like there was a straight up like floating galleon and stuff. It was quite interesting.
So this has kind of led to at least for me, because I actually, basically the first video I made on this channel was talking about this time period. And I don't want to toot my own horn on, but I will get to it. But for this era, again, not a lot is known, and the reasoning behind it is they wanted to take it down a more fantasy aspect. With that said, what I do try to do, at least my personal philosophy, is I try to make sense out of behind the scenes stuff. So, to clarify that, we know the reason why they did something in the lore, or behind the scenes. They wanted to create something in a fantasy aspect. That's what, the Lucas creative department wanted to do.
And so you want to extrapolate an in-universe reason for it.
Right. And basically the reason I came up with is the Republic and the Sith, and put this in a few videos, the Republic and Sith finally fight each other. The Republic and Sith that we see in the Old Republic, they finally drop the act, there's no more peace, and they blow each other to smithereens, and they keep blowing each other apart. Until the point where they're doing what they do in Warhammer, where, okay, so the Imperium of Man, they are technologically backwards. They are, it's a common thing that they can't replace some of these technologically advanced stuff, like their massive battleships, because they do not have the technological know-how, because they keep throwing all of their bodies into fighting and conflicts. The same general purpose applies.
Like, without the STCs, it's just, the AdMech is not in its best shape.
Right. And with that in mind, another aspect that I want to talk about too is we've seen this in our own history. World War II is a decent example. So you see Nazi Germany at the beginning of the war, and you see them with the advanced technology, they got top of the end stuff, and they have highly trained military. Midway through the war, their technology is still advancing, so on and so forth, and they're employing jet fighters, but by the end of the war, they're starting to be able to, they start running into problems. So the powerful Tiger tanks, they, again, for history buffs out there, I really am just kind of, I'm trying to do this as fast as possible to not bog it down. But the Tiger tanks were a very complicated piece of machinery, and they took a lot of maintenance. And eventually, towards the end of the war, they're just kind of stopped being used because they just, too much was put into trying to repair them. And as the war progressed, if you've played Hearts of Iron 4, if you're playing a nation and you have to do scraping the bottom of the barrel, then you kind of know where I'm getting at with this, is as the war progresses, you have less and less people going into civilian fields because you need more men to fight a war. So now you're conscripting the elderly and the young, leading to more and more of your brighter minds disappearing. And then in turn, your technology is going backward because all of your industrial centers have been destroyed. That's, part of the reason why there were so many Allied bombings in Germany. So imagine this on a galactic scale. And there's actually in the timeline a few things that happen that show this. But within the timeline, so you have the Second Great Galactic War, as I'm going to call it. You have these guys beaten...
Just one quick thing.
Yes.
It's also worth mentioning that at the time, the Kandorian Plague was also ravaging the worlds of the Mid-Rim and the...
I was going to get to that.
Anyway, go on.
Oh, yeah. But what I was getting at is you have, after this great galactic war, you have industrial centers just torn apart. So now it's kind of difficult, and after centuries of fighting, people are going to kind of forget how to repair or replace. So there's a small shift away in, technology. But then, like you said, there is the Kandorian Plague, which wipes out, I think they say a third or 2/3 of the entire galactic population.
Something along those lines, yeah.
And then beyond that, it's either that it coincides or it's because of this, the HoloNet more or less disappears, which means you no longer have galactic spanning communication, which results in areas becoming more and more self-reliant, areas becoming more and more, self-reliant and independent. So you then see a rise in internal conflicts. Around this time, a conflict erupts between Coruscant, Corellia, Elscan, and a few other core worlds.
That's right. That's the third Alsacan conflict, I think?
I want to say it's the 12th, but...
My early lore isn't quite up to date yet, or quite up to speed.
The only reason why I kind of have this in the back of my head is I needed to for a video where I went on for 30 minutes talking about this time period, and
right.
I can't remember dick. I'm looking at it, and I'm gonna need to, But yes, so that's kind of the, why the technology fell apart. And the stories within this time period are varied. I remember in high school they had the Knight Errant comics, which touches on this time period.
Yeah.
I remember reading them and going, what year is this? Because I was
because it was so weird, because they were still using the Hammerhead cruisers from KOTOR several thousand years later.
Right.
And though like a lot of the things in Star Wars, I presume there were a lot of advancements like under the hood, like so to speak.
But
I was going to say I got super confused when they brought the Hammerhead into Rebels. I didn't realize it was a whole different ship. I thought it was the Hammerhead from KOTOR. I'm like, what? Why are the Rebels using this?
Yeah, I was rather excited when I saw it.
I thought the same, but then I realized, like, apparently some of the, well, I mean, of course, the whole Legends can. Well, we'll get to that later. But apparently, like, even some of the farther Republic things, like, even in, like, just before the Rise of the Empire era, were still using Hammerhead cruisers, which I find hilarious.
But
well, the USS Constitution is still technically an active duty warship, so
Yep.
it's not like it hasn't been done in real life.
It's very true. It's
not nearly as old though, but
I mean, some militaries are still using horses, so you know. Don't fix what ain't broken.
This time period is very unfleshed out. The most notable point in time is when the Jedi Lord, which is a concept that's rather interesting, when Jedi Lord Hoth rallies an army of Jedi and non-force-wielding soldiers to combat the Brotherhood of Darkness, the newest incarnation of the Sith. During this time period, the Sith are constantly splitting apart, fighting each other, and all that.
Exactly, and the darks, and well, a certain individual comes into the fray in that chaotic time.
Yes, but we'll get to him, because he comes in at the tail end. That's one of the fascinating parts about the Dark Age, which I'll get to, but however, the Brotherhood ended up coming together, all the different Sith factions were obliterated, and the Brotherhood of Darkness came to be, and they basically wanted to work together to conquer the galaxy. They had a very forward-thinking strategy. But here's the thing that is fascinating about the Dark Age, is despite the losses of trillions of lives, despite the non-stop fighting of the Republic, and the Republic does collapse during this period.
Yeah, because like it pretty much ceases to exist outside the core world.
Which is why
it only exists in name.
Correct. Which is why Jedi Lords came to be. Jedi Lords were powerful, like Jedi Masters who basically came to run planets because they're the only one. The Jedi Order were basically the only order who could do galactic communication, who could travel across the galaxy. It's kind of like oh man, trying to think of them like in the Dark Age in Europe, the Middle Ages, where the Roman Empire collapses, and the last vestiges of the Roman Empire is the Catholic Church, and how they're able to communicate with each other across the country. Excuse me. Across the continent. It's kind of the same thing with the Jedi, which makes sense. Monks, warrior monks. But these Jedi Lords came to rule planets, rally armies, and became very militarized. The Jedi in this period were Jedi Knights, almost in the literal sense. It was a very...
With Knights Errant as well.
Oh.
But, right. But, you see, trillions of people die, and in this massive continuing conflict. And ultimately, in the end, the Republic do not win. The Jedi do not win.
They survive.
The only reason why the war ended is because the Sith chose it to end. Because Darth Bane manipulated things and ended it. Which is a very bitter way to end it, and I do like that. But yeah. So that's kind of a rough abridgment. There's a lot of battles, as there are. There really aren't that many notable characters.
Aside from, Darth Bane, Zana, and Lord Hoth.
Right. And then you have the characters from the Darth Bane books. But then, kind of the guy who kicked it off, Darth Ruin. He was a Jedi Master who started the Fourth Great Schism, which in turn led to the new generation of Sith popping up. It's his fault.
For those who don't know what a Great Schism is, it's basically like a giant split in the Jedi Order. Or if you're in Halo, between the Sankhili and the Covenant.
Think of it like the Protestant Reformation and the wars that followed, and then make it 1,000 times worse. That's what that is.
Arguably, the Protestant Reformation came after, with the Ruzan Reformation.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that basically reformed the Republic into how we saw it function in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and all that. With Phineas Valorum's reforms and the kind of centralizing and at the same time decentralizing, kind of giving more power to all the senators and representatives of the planets, and just consolidating the Supreme Chancellor.
And part of the reason why the Ruzan Reformations were incorporated is because of one of Lucas's bigger fumbles. So this has been pointed out time and time again.
Yes.
If you've watched the Red Letter meeting...
For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were guardians of peace in the Old Republic. And then in the prequels, Palpatine... I think it was Palpatine said, "I will not let this republic that has stood for 1,000 years fall into darkness," or something. So is it 1,000 generations or years?
In C.O. Bibble in Episode 1, when he said... Oh, no, it was actually Episode 2. He said there hasn't been a full-scale war since the formation of the Republic. And with things like KOTOR coming out around that same time, it's kind of like, what? So that needed explaining, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And it became a giant clusterfuck, which, honestly, I commend the writers who made this series, the Jedi vs. Sith series, because, my god, did you have a lot of work to do. And it makes for...
Those guys did it well, because they also managed to, bring in the themes from Dark Forces 2.
Yeah.
Because with the whole Valley of the Jedi on Ruusan and stuff. Because it basically is the backstory to that game as well.
It is all very It's pretty cool.
Wasn't the Bane trilogy written in the 90s anyway, around about the same time Dark Forces 2 came out?
No, it was definitely post 2004, because I remember in the first one, Bane finds Revan's holocron.
Oh, okay. My bad.
No worries.
I'm not very well versed in this era. Like I said, my knowledge comes from one YouTube video I did, much like Boom's experience.
Let's see here real quick. I will get the date for you because I'm on the wiki as just cliff notes. It came out 2006.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's way earlier than I thought it was.
But though, yeah, so most of the stuff we know is basically only in the last 100 years of the new Sith Wars, which are called the Dark Age, or the Republic Dark Age, or whatever. However, there is one particular event around 400 years before that, which are quite interesting. Somehow, there was a Sith Lord so bad that the Jedi managed to get the Mandalorians to work with them against that Sith.
Shit, who is this? Because I cannot recall.
It's I believe he was called just the Dark Underlord, and it's like, oh, that's edgy.
But
God, that's edgy. Like,
but it's pretty cool. It's just a nice little tidbit of lore.
Is there like novels we can read about this, or is it like one?
I think it was just
paragraph on Wiki.
I think it was a paragraph in the New Essential Chronology or something.
Yeah, a lot of these. Here's the thing: a lot of the things have been fleshed out by role-playing games, as well as like little tidbits in Star Wars Insider. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from, which makes it a pain in the ass to keep up. My God.
Though I'll be honest, this is one of the things I miss the most about the Legends Expanded Universe. That like all this lore from role-playing games that like that you can think about forever and discuss forever. It's one of the areas I feel is lacking in the new canon.
Well, here's the thing. Just from personal experience, because I making a video talking about how the new Mandalorians make no sense, how they came to be. What ended up happening is they like right after I released that video, it either came out like a month or two before, but Fantasy Flight drops a book for Star Wars Age of Rebellion, and
I wrote the Wikipedia article for that they introduced the old Mandalorians, which are the ones that we all know and love.
Right, and they introduced the concept of the Great Clan Wars, and I'm like, fuck! And I got several comments talking about it. I'm like, fuck! Because I had this great theory pertaining to, because at the time, the only real civil war that existed was from Jango Fett Open Seasons. And, you know, doing all this thing, then this comes out, and I'm like, well, there goes everything.
Here's the thing. It fixes one of... the introduction of the Great Clan Wars actually fixes an inconsistency. I believe it was in Republic Commando, one of the... I think it was Etain who inquired about the Mandalorian Civil War. And I think it was Jang who said, like, oh, it was just a small feud between two factions, irrelevant to the lives of most Mandalorians. Then another article says, the article from Star Wars Insider, The History of the Mandalorians, says that, like, it changed, it nearly destroyed the Mandalorians. So it's like, so how do you reconcile that? Well, in my headcanon, some Mandalorians consider the Great Clan Wars and the Mandalorian Civil War as two distinct conflicts. Others consider them one.
Right. Making it again, I consider them one, but at this point, it doesn't fucking matter. It's just the new Mandalorian. I don't know what the writers were thinking about introducing them, because I myself have no
George Lucas.
Like the new Mandalorians for me. When I was first watching those episodes, I'm like, that seems off. And for a while, I honestly could buy them because because I knew about the Civil War. I didn't pay attention to a few of the other things, but I knew about the Civil War. I'm like, okay, these two sides kicked the shit out of each other, creating a power vacuum, and these guys rose out of the darkness, whatever. But then I looked into it more, and then I'm like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, because of the whole the Mandalorian Excision 738 BBY.
See, the Mandalorian Excision makes a bit of sense.
No, no, I agree, because like it shows why modern Mandalorians hate Jedi, because like it makes no sense to have a grudge that's 4,000 years old. A 700-year-old one that still has scars on your planet makes more sense.
And I do love by love I hate. I love the fact that no one in the TV shows, like no Mandalorian character goes, yeah, remember the Excision when you slaughtered billions of people? Yeah, that was pretty uncalled for. Just...
Well, okay, that's a little unfair because unless I'm mistaken, the Excision was introduced in the Bounty Hunter Code, which was like released the year that TCW ended. I may be wrong.
Let's see here. I got the wiki up. Mandalorian exit. Yeah, I can't spell. There we go.
EXC.
Yep, I got it. So when was this first introduced? It was first mentioned in the Essential Atlas. Came out in 2009.
Oh, that's right. Jason Fry is a good guy.
Like,
I think it was Jason Fry who wrote that.
Like, it is fascinating about why it happens.
Because it's a preemptive strike, but a mostly like uncalled for one. Because they're not the same entity they were during the time of the Neo Crusaders.
Here's the thing: I do really like how, like,
the Jedi were in the wrong here.
They're completely. The Manda-lore. Ah, shit, don't know his name. But one thing I do like about the new canon is they kind of.
I think.
Yes.
Is that who you're thinking of?
Though those Mandalores during the Dark Age, that is some fascinating stuff, and that stuff I really do kind of enjoy. How Mandalore the Uniter is just a dude. He shows up, see his people in ruin, everything's going to hell because the rest of the galaxy's going to hell, and he's like, I'm not having this. And then he proceeds to basically kick his people in the ass, and then make the Mandalorian space one of the most secure sectors in the galaxy for a thousand years.
400, but close.
Yeah, I suppose. Shit, that's... Well, when the fuck does he show up? Let's see.
So how do they transition from that into the pansy new Mandos?
No, because... Oh, right. For the audience who isn't familiar... Delta is our resident Legends purist, and who doesn't take any TCW.
Yeah, but
in other words, I live under a rock.
Which is interesting because I when I first thought of this show, I wanted people with quite varying opinions. So we've got our Legends purist. Both Boo and I are like both Legends and canon to my knowledge.
See, I just like good stories with cool characters. That's all I'm really in for.
Okay, and I was looking for a new canon purist, but
those are very hard to find.
Yeah, well, at least ones with non-normies, I might say.
Right, I was going to say go anywhere on the internet and I can find a bunch.
No. It's not hard to find them. It's just hard to find ones with the similar dedication we have.
Correct. It's
not to no. I'm not. This isn't a we're true fans argument. No, if you like something, you are a true fan.
It's right.
I'm just saying people who, how do I put this? Think about it more. I don't know. I don't know how to put it.
Okay, real quick, because I'm actually gonna pull this up quick, because I absolutely hate the goddamn poster for The Last Jedi.
Do you?
The one with the bisected, like, half of
Rey's
and half of cut.
I mean, half of Kylo's, half of Luke's.
Yeah.
Face?
So here I'm going to.
What is it? Is it because they don't align, or?
Yes. Like, it's just unnecessary.
Like,
align them. It bothers me so much. It is unnecessary how much it bothers me. You know, it's like you cut Luke's head off at the top, and then you cut freaking Kylo's chin off, and you have them mismatched, and it looks bad. I think it would have looked better if they had it, symmetrical. Because then, here's the thing.
Symmetry is beauty.
Here's the thing. When I see it, at least with how their hair looks, like if you have Luke and Kylo both kind of together at parallel level, this could just be how I'm looking at it, but you can kind of see the shape of like a Darth Vader helmet because they have kind of long hair. You know, it could be cool foreshadowing for the movie, but no. Ah, God, I do not like that poster. It bugs me. I went to go see Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I saw the poster at my local theater, and I'm like, that is just ugly. But
still not as bad as that new Spider-Man poster.
Yeah.
We're getting off topic.
It's very true. I just had to bitch about that.
No worries.
I kind of wanted to make a video about that, but I'm like, it's not worth it. Too much time goes into making that shit.
Oh yeah. We forgot to mention something. Apologies, audience, if you're not big Mando fans, but suck it, Arueti. The new Sith Wars was also the time period where Dirge first came around.
Yeah.
I was going to say something earlier when you were talking about the Mandos during the Dark Ages, but I actually have that comic. I have the Visions with Dirges.
Those are hard to find nowadays.
I found it in my one of the chain bookstores up here called Bull Moose. I went to one in Salem, New Hampshire, and they had that one was around a lot longer than the one up by me is. So they had a bunch of old Legend stuff and comics, and people will bring in and sell their old stuff. So I scored like some really good comics there, and I found the Visions collection, which has Dirge's backstory, General Grievous's backstory, which is what I originally got.
We'll get to that in a minute, because I love Legends Grievous so much.
One more thing though, before we get back on topic, it also has the original General Grievous Legs Maul story that George specifically said is non-canon until he brought him in the Clone Wars, like, I don't know, 3 years later.
Something along.
So I just own that out of irony.
I had a similar experience. Last year, and for the 6 years prior to that, I was living in Nairobi, Kenya, actually. And believe it or not, there were a couple of old Star Wars comics there as well. Like, you should have grabbed them. I did, actually. Oh, good. No, but it's just funny to me, like, and like, I don't know, because I've had a different experience to most growing up, like that I think the term is like third culture kid or whatever, but like basically I've been hopping around, like, and one of the biggest constants everywhere you go is a presence of Star Wars. At least that was the biggest constant that stuck out to child me.
Yeah. Man, I'm thinking, because I've also moved around quite a bit. I'm trying to think back. It's not like Star Wars didn't exist. It was just... I guess it kind of faded from relevancy for a while when I was moving around, so...
I remember it not being nearly as popular as it is today.
Right.
Oh, no. Right now, I think it's the biggest it's been since 77 through 83.
Yeah.
It's seeped into casual pop culture. Whereas, like, when I was in high school, I remember I'd be playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Renegade Squadron and Elite Squadron on my PSP and getting made fun of for it. Now, people would be like, oh, what? Is you playing Star Wars? That's cool. You know?
Yeah.
Like, did you used to kick my ass in high school? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, somehow, even the Phantom Menace, which, let's be honest, was the most hyped movie of all time. Somehow, yeah, well, I mean, I guess it was because TFA was better received than TPM that now it's such a big thing again.
They may have even marketed it better.
Sorry?
They may have even marketed it better. That sounds like butchered English, but...
Here's the thing. From a actual film standpoint, the special effects, the acting, that stuff was just better on the whole.
Oh, the acting was miles, but yeah.
And then even though
no discredit to Ewan and Liam Neeson, but
right, I mean,
well, of course.
However, hell, even Natalie Portman, goddamn, ooh, fucking, that came out when I was like 3-4 years old. Yeah, 99. I was anywhere from 3 to 5 years old, and yeah, that was a very helpful movie. Like, never mind. That just sounds bad. I'm gonna get off topic. Get back on top.
No worries.
I'm gonna just mute myself.
No. Actually, that might be an interesting topic to go to next. How were you introduced to Star Wars?
Shit. Like, I was actually introduced to Star Wars because Episode 1 was the first... Let me phrase that. I ended up... This is actually one of my earliest memories that I recall, so I believe I was like 3 years old, but I remember seeing the trailer for Phantom Menace while I was at basically a daycare, who was someone's house, essentially. And then I remember yoinking one of the magazines from the person who's taking care of me. I remember yoinking one of the magazines from an end table, opening it up, and I'm seeing the shot of when the droids are getting out of those carriers, the land carriers, and it's just several droid rows.
Roger.
And I remember pulling that out and then getting punished for it because I ruined her magazine. And then I remember when it came out, going off to go see the film. And it was the first movie I ever saw in the movie theater, and I was scared shitless because I was 3 years old and it was dark. But then I remember I couldn't...
Mall's pretty spoopy.
Yeah, the movie itself I was fine for. Like, I actually couldn't sit down during the movie because I was standing up in place because we're one of those, like, you have like the bottom section, you have the top section. We're basically like at the section where it's like the beginning of the top section, so there's like a bar in front of me, so it wasn't like in anyone's way. So I'm just like on the bar, kind of jumping up and down, being a little shit, watching the movie. I don't remember anything about it, but remember that just being my first movie I saw in the theater. But yeah.
And you were hooked since then.
Yes. Since then, it's been all downhill from there. Yeah.
Do you want to go next, or?
I can go. I didn't actually get into Star Wars until a little bit before Episode 2 came out. And my dad waited till I was 8, I guess, to show me. I guess he didn't really wait, but he didn't really show me until I was 8. I remember like seeing it around and being like kind of curious. Now, And Boo, to make you feel better, I used to be afraid of Chewbacca before I even saw the movie, so... and then I'm like, oh, Chewbacca's not that bad. Because, like, I don't know, I just remember seeing, like, a commercial and, like, with his growl, and I was just like, ugh. You know, that's scary to, like, a 4 or 3-year-old, but,
No, but it's like, real quick, I remembered what I was trying to get at, is basically Star Wars The Phantom Menace made 3-4-year-old Boofire, because of Natalie Portman, realized that I in fact liked girls, which was a very weird thing at that young of
age. There you go.
That's what I was trying to get at, and I realized, man, that sounds weird.
So, my stepbrother owned all the original on VHS non-special edition versions before the 1997 re-release.
Oh man!
So I got a unique experience of seeing pretty much the unaltered version of the original trilogy, and my dad. We watched in chronological order. We couldn't, not chronological, release order. Not that we could watch chronological order because Attack of the Clones was like a couple months from being released, so the saga wasn't complete yet. But I remember he showed me A New Hope, and then I pretty much just sat silent and stalwart through the whole thing. And then I turned around. This is his favorite memory. I turned around and I go, "Is there more?" So then I watched the rest of the trilogy, and then I watched Phantom Menace. And don't kill me, but I kind of liked Jar Jar for a while.
Don't worry, you were a kid.
Oh, ironically, I'll still quote Jar Jar to this day.
He's actor.
Like,
Misa thinking you saw Bombad General.
Misa be Bombad General? Oh, no.
Just like around my friends, I'll quote them, and they'll be like, "Shut up," and I'll be like, "Oh, whatever." But yeah. So I watched those movies, and then around this time, the original Clone Wars series was starting to air.
Yeah, and that shit was awesome.
I watched that, and I loved it, but I guess I didn't really have the appreciation I do for it now since I was older. Because I couldn't, back then I wasn't, this was like 2003, 2004, I wasn't getting the chronology right. Like I didn't know that they all led into episode 3 at the time. But I have more of appreciation for it now. And I remember, because I wasn't 13 yet, I was only 10, my dad would not let me watch episode 3.
Same happened to me, actually. Couldn't watch episode 3.
It's like a consolation prize. My mom got me the novelization.
Yeah. See, my folks had no problem with that. They just like, yep, let's go watch. I'm like, all right. And then I remember getting to the point where, you know, he killed the younglings. And then I think I remember like one of my parents going, oh, so they really did do that. I just like,
Whoops.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but, you know, I'm a mostly functioning human being, so I came out moderately okay.
But even the younglings.
Yep, especially the younglings.
I just love the memes that have spawned from that movie, though.
Oh, prequel memes are godly.
So, like, I'm on a Discord server with the Scoundrels Cantina, and they have a section for shit posting. And every day, there's at least one episode 3 meme.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Just saying that in odd locations is great.
Finished rereading that, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh yeah, me. Well, I had quite a different, beginning to Star Wars than most people. Not through the movies, but actually, I was sitting on my butt, Brazil, 2003, watching TV, watching Samurai Jack, I think. And then the thing was, Yeah, it must have been Samurai Jack, because Gandhi Tartakovsky. So, I see these white-clad soldiers, and one of them is in red, and I just doing the most cool things my 5-year-old brain had ever seen.
Fucking, yeah. ARC Trooper Fordo is the man.
Captain Fordo is the best.
Fun fact for those at home. Originally in the early drafts of the Clone Wars cartoon, like the newer one, Captain Rex was Fordo.
Was actually Alpha 17.
Yeah.
From the comics.
They didn't want alliteration.
Yeah, because Anakin, Ahsoka, R2, Alpha would have been too much.
You want to know a simpler trick, though? Just spell R2 with an R.
Oh man, that would have been great alliteration. Ah!
Anyway,
or the other simple. No, I won't say it. Never mind.
Okay.
In case there are any Ahsoka fans out there.
Yeah.
Where was?
Oh yeah. So, I thought it was pretty cool. Flash forward a couple years later, 5 years later. I still wasn't too big on Star Wars, but then I got The Force Unleashed for my birthday, and the Clone Wars aired, and then, ooh, this is interesting, because the thing is, since Star Wars has had a couple of like big multimedia things, because after the originals, it goes like Shadows of the Empire, Clone Wars, The Force Unleashed, and then The Clone Wars. So I think each of those had like a wave of like kids it attracted, I think. So I was like slowly caught in the original Clone Wars one. Like I was caught a little bit in that one, and then the Force Unleashed and The Clone Wars caught me full force.
Was the most recent Clone Wars series, was that a multimedia project? I know there was like a few comics and books, but I don't.
Oh, there were comics, books, video games.
There was like a video game.
A video game whose Steam reviews are not looking hot.
I just don't remember it being as massive as
Republic Heroes and like lightsaber duels, both of which were not the greatest.
Yeah, there's been a dearth in Star Wars games that I really want to be altered, because
like the last great Star Wars game was oh my god.
I want to say like the last like legendary. Here's the thing.
Legendary Battlefront 2.
Well, I was gonna say Knights of the Old Republic 2. And
that's actually a really good one too.
Here's the thing: I've been playing it on Steam with the cut content patch, which makes the game, if the damn thing doesn't break on you, because there's a few points with that mod where the game will break, and it's a miserable time because you just wasted several hours and you realized, shit, I don't have a save except for one that's way back at the beginning.
Right.
But the thing is with that game is it came out like a few months after the first one. They really wanted to capitalize it on again. And the direction they were going with the story was really cool.
Please not too many spoilers, because like I do know the basics because I've spent so much time, but I do want to play through it.
Yep, I'm not spoiling anything, but the direction that they took, a more personal route, and how... I'm actually may one day do a video on this, but I don't know what to title it. But the Knights of the Old Republic comics with Zane Carrick and that game do something rather clever in regards to storytelling and mechanics. So, shit, that will be a video one day. I'm not going to talk about it here, but there's something with the exile that makes it fascinating. And then there's things with Zane Carrick. It's cool stuff. And when I want to play Knights of the Old Republic, I don't... Ooh, excuse me. I'm hiccuping, man. Oh, God. When I play Knights of the Old Republic 1, I if I want to play Knights of the Republic, I don't play the first one because, it's a fun game, but in terms of gameplay, Knights of the Republic 2 is better. More customization, more options, things like that. But also the darker tone and the darker story and setting that it places itself in is very cool. And the fact that you become, or can become, a Jedi Master, for a lack of a better term, or, a Sith Lord, for lack of a better term, is fascinating and cool. There is one minor... Actually, no. Yeah, no, there is one minor hiccup when you introduce the Old Republic MMO with it, but that's just a minor thing. The game, it really sucks. I wish the game never came out as early as it did, because if it had time to be worked on, I think it would be considered way better than the first one. And the first one's very good. But I think the last legendary game was the Sith Lords. Like, that game, man. And we need one of those. We seriously need one of those. And, I don't know. Like, it'd be cool if they gave, CD Projekt Red, like, the go-ahead to make a Star Wars RPG. Because, god damn it, I want one. I want a good, deep Star Wars RPG. Damn it.
One day. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, yeah. So,
hold on, guys.
To wrap up. The thing I was
saying. Oh, wait, no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we're coming up on an hour in a little bit here. That's what I was just going to say.
Oh, that's fine.
But
see how this goes.
Like maybe 20 minutes.
All right.
I've got 17 left on my timer.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just didn't,
No, it's all good. No, I was looking at that. I was looking at the Skype call. Fun fact, we're using Skype to record this. Or, let me phrase that. That's how we're talking. Whatever. I'm covered in wires.
What was I saying?
I think you were wrapping up your...
Oh, yeah. No, just to finish up. And then Clone Wars, it's like pretty... I was an okay fan with that. And then, I got Star Wars Republic Commando, Order 66, and the Republic Commando game. That was it for me. There was no way out of being a Star Wars fan after that.
Yeah. Republic Commando was a very unique experience to play. And then you get the books, get to with the characters. Yeah, that's a hard way to get out. Like, that's a sample right there, with all those little things Star Wars was your drug dealer giving you some stuff, and then that's just the final smack to make you hooked.
Precisely.
I believe on Keldabe Talk Radio, which is the Mandalorian Mercs podcast, they refer to it as the gateway drug.
Yep.
You want to buy some death sticks?
Yeah.
Poor Evan Sleazebago, whatever his name was.
What a terrible name. Bit on the nose. It's kind of like Gar Saxon. Jesus Christ.
His Wikipedia page is basically he went home and rethought his life.
Oh man, that's one thing. You know what? No, I'll save that for a different day. But one thing that I do hope with canon is they do bring back the new Sith Wars, or at the very least they expand upon this crazy ass time period. Because right now, Star Wars is kind of in a dearth of creativity. As much as I enjoyed Rogue One, I'm getting kind of tired of seeing X-Wings, TIE Fighters, and all of that in all the media.
War. Yeah.
Just...
Right. Hopefully with Battlefront 2, well, the new Battlefront 2, where we'll get some expansion into, the Clone Wars again.
Right, but even then, I'm starting to get tired of the Clone Wars. Like, I want like Jedi and goddamn dragons flying into a giant star.
Dragons are legends. Arcanian dragons.
Yes,
right, dragons.
Just
it is.
Star Wars isn't sci-fi. It's
space fantasy. Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I want some of the whimsical, I want the batshit back, man.
I agree to a certain extent, because, okay, the thing about sci-fi, unless I'm mistaken, the definition is like everything in the story is theoretically possible.
Right.
To our understanding. Star Wars is not. Even in the movies, there's, the Force.
Hyperspace.
But, like, I'm okay with not having, Waru and Mount Sorrow and all that batshit Ewok shit. But, like...
Okay, yeah. The really weird Ewok stuff, I gotta say, is a bit much, but...
Yeah. But we... though in canon, we do have... lightsaber helicopters.
Yeah, that is that. Let me phrase that. When I want like crazy ass shit, I don't mean stuff that's just ridiculous. I can get behind a force ritual that can devour a sun, or I can get behind I want some of the cool dark fantasy stuff back. That is one thing that is cool about the new Sith Wars, is how it is a kind of a dark fantasy setting. It is, for all intents and purposes, Warhammer. Where, let me phrase that. It's Warhammer if Warhammer 40k wasn't fucked.
Yeah, because it's in my opinion, the most grimdark period in Star Wars history.
Yeah. And I want someone
or the closest thing to it.
Expand upon it. One of the things with my channel is I do a lot of stories. That's kind of one of the larger draws, is I create stories and people listen to them. And I may be hoping one day I can, knock down the doors of Disney and go, hey, can I write a novel for Star Wars? What do you want to do it on? I want to do a crazy-ass dark fantasy in a time period that's been barely touched upon. Why? Because I want to bring the crazy back. I don't know. Star Wars needs to introduce new elements again.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be... I think it might be a while, because I read something recently that apparently one of the deals for when Disney bought the rights to making the Star Wars films again, is that they have to include R2 and 3PO in them.
In all of them?
I believe so.
Were they in
it may
Rogue
just
One?
be...
They were.
Oh.
Very briefly. But
just have them as extras in the background.
No, here's how I do it. I'd start the story off in modern day for all intents and purposes.
Oh, whoa. Hold on. Do you guys remember there's a plot point in I think it's mentioned in the worlds of George Lucas or something like that, and then it's basically Star Wars is a story told by R2-D2 several hundred years after the event happened.
I have run across the idea that Star Wars is the story of basically C-3PO and R2-D2, they're what they witness. I haven't quite heard that, but I buy it. Could be cool.
Interesting theory.
Oh shit. Okay, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, and for those who have stuck with the podcast this long, I applaud you. I seriously have to take a piss, but I want to wrap this up with this one last thing. So there was a book pitched for Star Wars before they were bought out by Disney, and I got to look more into this, but a few people brought this to my attention. But this was supposed to be the book that explains the beginning of
Alien Exodus.
Maybe?
Oh my god, wait, okay. I can go on forever about that. We should probably save that for next time we do this, because I have thought so much about this book.
Okay, then we're going to talk about that later. I think that's what So, a peek behind the curtain. This is just me talking before we leave. I think for this podcast, what we're going to... Because I think we do better when we're just talking about things instead of trying to describe history.
It flows more naturally.
Flows more naturally that way. So, what we're going to do next time, because I'm kind of jacked for it, I'll look into it more myself, is we're going to go talk about the mysterious future of Star Wars and the book that never was. Good plan?
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right.
So, I've been Boofire191.
I've been Sombraptor.
And I've been Delta.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you. This has been the BAMPS podcast. You know what? Name is subject to change. But we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
Retur Shemi, Mandoade.